Okay, so the 26th of March, 2025, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. You gotta picture this moment. A 19-year-old girl from the Philippines, ranked 140th in the world. Nobody knew her name, literally nobody. She was ranked so low that most casual fans wouldn't even know she existed. But she walked onto court one that day and did something that doesn't happen in professional tennis. She beat Iga Swiatek, world number 2. Not in a tight match where you're sitting there biting your nails. No, she dominated her. 6-2, 7-5. Absolutely dismantled her. Think about what that means for a second. The 140th best tennis player on the planet just defeated the second best. She broke Swiatek's serve 8 times. 8. Swiatek lost her own serve more times in that match than most players lose it in an entire tournament. Meanwhile, Eala lost her serve only twice the whole match. The crowd was losing their minds. Her coach in the box couldn't even process what he was watching. Like his brain couldn't catch up to what was actually happening on the court. And in that single moment, everything changed for Eala. She went from being this unknown prospect to an international story. First Filipino to ever beat a top 2 player. First Filipino to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. The prize money she made that week was almost as much as she had earned in her entire professional career before stepping foot in Miami. Suddenly, everyone was talking about her. ESPN was talking about her. Tennis journalists were debating whether she was the future of the sport. In the Philippines, she became a national hero. They were showing her matches on every sports channel. She was the girl who changed everything. But here's what nobody mentions when they tell that story. That incredible victory at Miami, it wasn't the beginning of something beautiful. It was the exact moment everything started falling apart. Look, to really understand why Eala matters in all of this, you gotta know who she actually is. Most people had never heard of her before Miami, and there was a real reason for that. She was one of those players. You know the type. Talented on the junior circuit. Won tournaments as a kid. Everyone's saying this girl is special. This girl is going to be the next big thing. Except the problem is that being special at the junior level doesn't mean anything when you turn pro. Professional tennis is a completely different animal. Eala was born in 2005 inches, Quezon City, Philippines. Not exactly known as a tennis factory. Her mom used to swim competitively. Her dad was a businessman. They weren't tennis people. They didn't have connections in the sport. They didn't have money to hire private coaches or travel circuits constantly. But they saw something in their daughter. So, when she was 13 years old, they sent her to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. Do you know what that means? That's where the elite train. That's where the best young players in the world go to develop. She trained there for 6 years alongside some of the most talented juniors on the planet. On the junior circuit, she was genuinely incredible. Australian Open Junior doubles title when she was 14. French Open Junior title the next year. Then in 2022, she won the US Open Junior Singles Championship. First Filipino ever to do that. Ever. And everyone was like, okay, this girl is ready. She's coming to the pro tour and she's gonna dominate. But professional tennis doesn't work that way. Being amazing as a junior doesn't guarantee anything. Before Miami 2025, Eala's professional record was 2 wins and 14 losses. 2-14. That's not just bad. That's genuinely abysmal. She had lost 12 matches in a row. 12. Most players would have quit. They would have gone home, given up on tennis, moved on with their lives. But Eala kept showing up. When she got that wild card entry to Miami in March 2025, she was ranked 140th. Wildcards are basically the tournament's way of saying, we're going to give you a shot even though you probably don't deserve to be here. Most wildcards get eliminated in the first round. That's the expectation. That's what's supposed to happen, but Eala didn't play by those rules. She beat Katie Volanets in round 1, then Jelena Ostapenko, a Grand Slam champion, in round 2. Came back from down 4-0 inches the first set and won in straight sets. Then she beat Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion. Then Swiatek, 3 Grand Slam champions in a row. all eliminated by the same girl, all in straight sets. No tie breaks, no third sets, just straight domination. The Philippines went insane. Social media was exploding. Tennis media was writing think pieces. She was on ESPN. She was on international news. This girl had become a symbol for her entire nation's possibilities in professional tennis. She was representing something bigger than herself. But then the Miami tournament ended. She lost in the semifinals to Jessica Pegula. And what happened after that? That's when the real story actually begins. So what happened after Miami? Logically, things should have only gotten better, right? She was ranked 140th coming in. After winning those matches and reaching the semifinals, she was projected to jump up to around 75th. She should have been climbing higher and higher. She should have been building momentum. She should have been proving that Miami wasn't a fluke. Except something changed. Starting in April 2026, you could see something shift. It was dark, it was strange, and it was immediate. The Linz Open came first, Upper Austria Ladies Linz. It was her clay court debut for the season. She won her first match against Julia Grabber pretty easily. 6-4, 6-3. She was feeling it. The Filipinos in the crowd were going absolutely crazy. She had momentum building. She was ready. Then came the round of 16. Jelena Ostapenko, the 2017 French Open champion. Same player she'd beaten before, but that was on hard court. Now they were on clay. Everything was different. Eala came out aggressive. She broke Ostapenko's serve twice in the first set and jumped out to a 4-2 lead. Ostapenko looked uncomfortable. She was not playing her game. Eala was controlling everything. The crowd was behind her. Everything was clicking. And then Ostapenko just started hitting. Like a switch flipped. 4 straight games. Gone. Just like that. Eala's lead disappeared, and Ostapenko took the first set 6-4. It was shocking how fast it happened. But Eala didn't break. She came back determined in the second set. She was even more aggressive. She won 4 straight games to start the second. Then she broke Ostapenko again and again. She got to 4-0, then 5-1. Do you understand what that means? She was literally 1 game away from forcing a third set. 1 game against a Grand Slam champion. She was that close. So what happened next? Why didn't she finish? Ostapenko just went on an absolute rampage. 6 straight games. 6. Eala couldn't hold serve. The serves that had been crisp all match suddenly went soft. Not tired soft, tight soft, mental soft. When you're leading 5-1 and you lose 6 straight games, that's not about physical ability. That's about something happening in your head. Ostapenko's winners in that match compared to Eala's. Ostapenko hit 41 winners. Eala hit 9, 41-9. How do you compete when your opponent is hitting 4 times as many winners as you? You don't. You just lose. And you lose wondering what happened. 1 week later, Stuttgart. The Porsche Tennis Grand Prix. Eala was ranked 45 now. Her ranking was already sliding from where it had been after Miami. She was facing Leylah Fernandez, world number 25. Fernandez has Filipino blood through her mother. So this should have been a great story, right? 2 players with Filipino heritage battling it out. Except it wasn't a battle. It was a beatdown. Fernandez came out and immediately broke Eala's serve. And broke her again. She was up 4-0 before Eala even really got into the match. This wasn't competitive tennis. This was one player completely outplaying another from the opening point. Fernandez was hitting winners early. She was moving Eala around the court like she was playing someone ranked 500th. Like she was playing a junior. The first set took 30 minutes. 6-1. That's not a set. That's a statement. The second set, Eala managed to fight back a little bit. She got to 5-4 at one point, which made it seem like maybe she could salvage something. But then Fernandez just closed her out. 6-4. Total time on court, 1 hour and 28 minutes. Here's what was weird, though. After the match, Fernandez talked about watching Eala years ago at the Rafa Nadal Academy. She said, I remember watching her play a couple years back, and she was playing super fast. It was like looking in a mirror. But that girl on the court in Stuttgart, that wasn't the girl Fernandez remembered. That was someone completely different. And that's when you could really see it. The pattern wasn't coincidence anymore. It was real. Look at the numbers, and it gets even worse. Eala started Miami ranked 140th. After Miami, she was projected at 75th. By the end of 2025, she was at 50th. In March 2026, she hit a career high of 29th. That seemed perfect. She was climbing. She was getting better. She was proving it wasn't a one-tournament wonder. But then the clay court season started, and everything reversed. By June 2026, she was back to 30th. But here's the killer stat. Her win-loss record for 2026 was 35 wins and 42 losses. She was losing more matches than she was winning. And remember, she was ranked higher than she was in 2025. But she was performing worse, way worse. First round exits at the Australian Open. First round exit at Qatar. First round exit at Stuttgart. On clay courts, specifically in 2026, she was 1-5. 1 win, 5 losses. That's not a slump, that's a crisis. She went from the 140th ranked player in the world beating the number 2 player to someone who couldn't win a first-round match, to someone who was completely lost out there. So the question everyone was asking, what's actually going on? Is she hurt? Did she lose her technique somehow? Did her coach leave? Did something fundamental break? Or is something else happening? Something nobody wants to talk about. Here's what people don't understand about why athletes collapse. It's rarely because they suddenly got worse. It's almost always because they got heavier. After Miami, Eala didn't lose her ability to play tennis. She lost her freedom. Before Miami, her mind was light. She was ranked 140th. Nobody expected anything. Nobody was watching. Every win was a bonus. Every match was a gift. When you're playing with that mentality, you play loose. Your shots feel easy. You trust your instincts because there's no downside. If you lose, well, you're supposed to lose anyway. You're 140th in the world. After Miami, everything flipped around. Now she was the story. The girl who changed Philippine tennis. The girl who beat world number 2. The girl from the Rafa Nadal Academy. The one who's supposed to represent her nation on the biggest stage. That's not just pressure. That's a weight that grows heavier every single day. You're 19 years old and millions of people are suddenly watching you. In the Philippines, you're a national hero. Your face is everywhere on social media. Sports journalists are analyzing your technique frame by frame. Casual fans are asking if you're the next big thing. And every single time you step on that court, you know that people aren't just hoping you win. They're expecting it. They're waiting. They're analyzing. They're comparing. They're wondering if you can do it again. It's like playing tennis while an invisible crowd of millions is screaming your name the entire match. The same technical skills that worked at 140th ranking now feel suffocating at 29th. And then there's Tony Nadal, Uncle Nadal. Rafael Nadal's uncle, his longtime coach. He was in her player box at Miami watching her beat world number 2. That's massive. That's the Rafa Nadal Academy giving its seal of approval. That's legacy and history. But now every single match is compared to that legacy. She's not just Alex Eala anymore. She's the Rafa Nadal Academy's next prodigy. She's supposed to be the next big thing from that academy. Rafa won 22 Grand Slams. Rafa dominated professional tennis for 2 decades. And now she's being measured against that standard in everyone's mind. That's not motivation anymore. That's a cage. And then there's the surface itself. Clay is completely different from hard court. Hard courts are where Eala thrives. Hard courts are fast. They reward aggression. They reward her forehand. You hit the ball and you move on to the next point. You don't have to think. You just swing and react. That's exactly how she played in Miami. That's how she beat Swiatek and Keys and Ostapenko that first time. Clay is the opposite. Clay is slow and heavy and patient. Points go forever because the ball doesn't bounce as fast. You can't hide on clay. You have to construct points. You have to think about placement. You have to be mentally tough for every single rally. And after Miami, her mind became exactly like clay. Slow, heavy, stuck. When she was leading 5-1 against Ostapenko in that second set at Linz, I guarantee you what was happening in her head. She was thinking about winning. She was visualizing what it would mean to beat this player again. She was feeling the weight of the expectations. She was thinking about the outcome instead of just playing. And in tennis, the second you shift from thinking about the process to thinking about the result, you've already lost that match mentally. Your body might still be playing, but your mind has already quit. That's not a technical problem, that's psychological, that's mental. And here's what makes it so brutal. The better you play, the heavier the weight becomes. She climbed from 140th to 75th, and the pressure increased. She reached 50th, and more expectations piled on. She got to 29th, and suddenly everyone was just waiting for her to fail, waiting to write the story about how she peaked too early. So she started playing scared, not consciously, not visibly, but subconsciously afraid. When you're leading 5-1 inch the second set, your body tightens. Your serve gets worse because you're thinking about holding serve instead of just serving. Your forehand becomes defensive because you're thinking about not losing instead of attacking. And suddenly that 6-game losing streak becomes completely inevitable. Not because your opponent got stronger, because you got heavier, because you cracked under the weight. This is the real collapse. It's not about her tennis, it's about her mind. It's not about her technique, it's about her psychology. She's trapped by her own success. You might think I'm reading too much into this, but when you actually look at the evidence, it's everywhere. You can literally watch the footage from Miami and compare it to Linz and see the difference. Same player, same body, but the mind is playing a completely different match. The mind is fighting itself. Watch her walk onto the court in Miami. There's this bounce in her step. She's moving fast. She looks confident. Between points, she sits down and she's locked in, shoulders back, eyes focused. Everything about her body language says she belongs there. Now watch Linz. She walks out slower. Her posture is different. She looks more cautious. And as the match goes on, especially after she takes that 5-1 lead in the second set, watch what happens to her serve. It gets slower. Not because she's tired, because she's thinking about it too much. She's thinking about holding serve. And the moment you start thinking about holding serve, you've lost the mental battle. By the time she's up 5-1, you can see it in every part of her body. Her shoulders are tight. Her movements are stiff and robotic. She's not the same player who tore into swiatek weeks before. Same person, different mind entirely. Now look at the rankings breakdown. Here's what's actually fascinating and kind of scary. Eala's career high is 29th. She hit that on the 16th of March 2026, 3 months after Miami, 3 months of climbing based on that tournament. But it's now late June 2026, and she's ranked 30th. She literally hasn't moved up at all. She's gone down 1 ranking spot. But the real problem is her record this year, 35 wins and 42 losses. That's terrible. That means she's losing more than she's winning. In 2025, her breakthrough year, she had a much better win-loss record. But in 2026, even though she's ranked higher, she's actually performing worse. How does that even happen? How do you stay ranked in the top 30 while losing more matches than you win? Only one way: reputation. The points she earned from Miami are still carrying her. They're like life support. But those points are going to expire. When they do, the rankings are going to collapse to match reality. And it's going to be brutal when it happens. She's running on fumes from one incredible week. Everything else is falling apart. Listen to what people close to the sport are actually saying. After Stuttgart, when Leylah Fernandez beat her, Fernandez said something revealing. She said, "She's fighting, but something's different. Not different in her strokes. Not different in her fitness, different in her presence, different in her energy, different in her mind." And Eala herself said something that was really telling. After Stuttgart, she said, "I need to remember why I loved playing." Think about that for a second. She's 20 years old. She just beat the #2 player in the world a few months ago. And she's saying she needs to remember why she loves tennis. That's not what a 20-year-old says when they're living their dream. That's what someone says when they've lost something essential. When the joy has left the game, there's actually a pattern in professional tennis. When underdog players have one massive upset and suddenly get international attention, their careers split into two paths. Victoria Azarenka, ranked 186th. She reached the Miami semifinal in 2018 after coming back from maternity leave. Odds were completely against her, but she managed to keep the momentum. She kept climbing. She stayed hungry. And now she's a consistent top 30 player. She figured it out. But then there's Daria Gavrilova. She was ranked 97th when she beat Maria Sharapova, the #2 player, at Miami in 2015. Massive upset. One of the biggest surprises in recent tennis history. But something broke after that. She couldn't recreate it. She couldn't handle the expectations. Despite having all the talent in the world, her career never quite recovered. She chased that high forever and never caught it again. Eala is following Gavrilova's path, not Azarenka's. But here's the detail that most people miss. And this is actually the key to understanding the whole thing. Indian Wells 2026, March 8th. Eala beat Coco Gauff. World #4, except Gauff retired injured during the second set. Eala was dominating. She was up 6-2 and 2-0. She was playing incredible tennis. But she didn't have to finish that match. She didn't have to close it out in a battle. Gauff just stopped. The media called it revenge. Eala had lost to Gauff at Dubai weeks earlier. So this felt like validation. This felt like she was getting back at her. But here's the thing that nobody talked about. That victory didn't feel real to Eala because she didn't earn it. Not completely. She was winning, but she didn't have to go through the mental war of actually closing out the match. Compare that to Linz. Compare that to Stuttgart. Those are matches where she had to finish, where she was tested mentally, where everything was on the line, and she collapsed both times. So what we're actually seeing is this. Eala hasn't had a real hard-fought victory since Miami. Every win after Miami has either been automatic or it's been incomplete. That Indian Wells win felt hollow. The other matches, she lost them. She hasn't had a moment since Miami where she won a match that was close and real and required her to battle her own mind and come out on top. And that's the real problem. That's what's actually broken inside her right now. We have the pattern. We have the proof stacked on top of each other. Body language changing completely. Rankings maintained by reputation alone, while actual performance falls apart. Other players noticing something's different about her energy. Statistical evidence showing she's heading in the wrong direction. And that Indian Wells moment revealing she hasn't been tested in a real way since Miami. But there's one final thing that changes how we look at all of this. The question isn't whether Eala can actually play tennis. Obviously, she can. She beat the world #2 player. The real question is whether she can play tennis without the weight of the entire world watching her and analyzing her and waiting for her to fail. Can she return to that 140th ranking mentality where every match was a gift instead of a test? Here's what gives me some hope, though. Unlike athletes whose collapse is physical, whose bodies break down, whose reflexes slow, Eala's collapse is completely mental, which means it's fixable. She didn't lose her forehand. She didn't lose her serve. She didn't lose her ability to move around a court. She lost her freedom, she lost her joy, and those things can come back. But it's going to take something drastic. It's going to take her completely reframing how she approaches this game at the highest level. She needs to find a way to play like someone who has nothing to lose while actually having everything to lose. That's the paradox. That's the thing almost no athlete can figure out. Can you be hungry and confident at the same time? Can you play aggressively while also being smart? Can you trust your shots while also respecting your competition? Most players can't solve that equation. They swing too hard when they're afraid, or they play too cautious when they're trying to prove something. Eala needs to find the middle, and it's incredibly difficult. Honestly, she might not figure it out. That's the hard truth. Some players never recover from this. Some players let the weight crush them, and they never get back up. Some players peak early, and they spend the rest of their career chasing that moment. But some do figure it out. Some players find a way to remember why they loved this game in the first place. They find a way to play with joy instead of playing with fear. And when they do, they come back bigger than before. In about a month, Eala is going to walk onto the clay courts at Roland Garros, the second biggest tournament in the world, the surface where she's been struggling all season. And for the first time, people aren't going to be hoping she survives. They're going to be expecting her to win. The pressure is going to be heavier than it's ever been. What happens at Roland Garros is going to tell us everything. Will she play scared, or will she play free? Will the weight crush her, or will she find a way to drop it? Can Eala actually recover from the burden of her own success? That's the story that's coming. The story nobody's really watching for yet, but they will be soon. If you want to see what happens when the pressure reaches its absolute peak, when the expectations become almost impossible to carry, you gotta watch part 2, because Roland Garros is gonna change everything about how we see this girl. Subscribe and don't miss it. And drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Can Eala recover her 140 mentality, or is she forever changed by her own success?